So this is how it really looks. You have the waxing and the waning on the inner circle. You have the conjunction half and the opposition half, the activity awareness halves on the outer circle in this graph. You see the squares, you see the conjunctions and oppositions. These are the four main aspects, the four major aspects in a chart. They're all stressful, but the conjunction has the potential for breakthrough. You know, like where at the opposition, there's a limit to have to understand. The conjunction, there's stress too, but it's pushing you to have to do something. It's pushing into action, involving whatever planets or whatever relationships are involved. But these are the four primary aspects in any cycle, in any relationship. So we had the 4 seasons, the 4 quarters of the chart. We have the 4 phases of aspect cycle. So really, it could be argued that after the conjunction, it's just a continuous state of stress until you get to the opposition. And after opposition, it's a continuous state of stress to apply the awareness until you get back to conjunction. So it can be argued everything's always stressful. Life is stressful. But we narrow these, we tend to, in looking at a chart, we narrow these down to certain orbs, usually 7 degrees for the planets, if they're both planets. If the sun or the moon is involved, we allow a 10-degree orb, a wider orb. Now, some people allow much wider orbs than that. Some people allow much tidier. It depends what you get used to looking at. Some people use 1-degree orbs only. It's too tight. Some people use 15 degrees orbs. Some people use the whole sign. So, like, there's all kinds of practitioners using this in all kinds of ways. Generally, I think you'll find if you're using 7-degree orbs, when you start talking about these things, people will relate to it and be able to understand what you're talking about. It won't be too generalized. You'll be able to specifically use them to tune in. And 10 if it's the sun or the moon. So when we put these together, we're seeing the 4 phases of the aspect cycle. From the conjunction, once you get together with someone, you extend the action. You're extending action. We're together, I got the extra energy, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I feel good, I'll make breakfast, I'll go do something, I'll go to the store, I'll do something. We start what I'm going to do. And it's doing it because we've had the conjunction with the other planet or the other person. Then wait a second, oh, this is a lot more effort than I thought, oh boy. And I started getting out and then I started meeting everyone else, hey, how's it going, what's happening? And it's taking me more time, oh, I got to remember to go get the bread at the store or whatever. And finally, okay, you get there, but by the time you're at the store, you're far away from the initial conjunction. And so from the square to the opposition, it's adjusting action. You're adjusting because you're extending action and then you're adjusting it. And as you're adjusting it, you're trying to adjust it so that you understand your need for adjustment. After the opposition, you're extending your awareness. You're pushing, I understand this is where it is, this is what everyone's doing. Okay, this is the weather, this is where everything's going, we're seeing where we're going, we're extending our awareness. At the square, from the square to the conjunction, we're having to adjust that awareness and do things in spite of, and start new things or to make an extra effort to make the next cycle happen. So I'm not going to stay on the phases. We come back to this on level 8 and go into these phases in much more detail. But I wanted to point them out here. And these are the 4 primary aspects. And these are stressful aspects. They stand out. When you talk about them, you can usually make the connection to someone of how it works. And there's going to be a tendency for be a struggle between the good and the bad, or the easy and the difficult. It's going to stand out. When you take the other aspects, even the major aspects, like the next one is if you take the sextile, the sextiles are both going to be, any sextile is going to be on the conjunction half of the cycle. Hence, the sextiles are considered aspects of productivity. They're easy aspects of productivity. They're spontaneous. Actually, once you just get going, you've had, and this is when you're riding smoothly till you run into the square. You're extending and you're on a roll. You're going on it, or you've got the understanding. You've made the adjustment. You're trying to go, and you're just on a bit of. So these are aspects of productivity. I say productivity because it's smooth action that gets something done. That it's getting into gear to make things to do things a bit better. So sextiles are aspects of productivity. It's difficult to talk about them and say it's this and have the person recognize it right away. Okay, so it's difficult to put that in words. The trines, so sextiles are 1/6, trines are 1/20 of of a cycle. When you're dealing with trines, trines are both on the opposition side. They're kind of smooth action based on understanding. I can see where I'm going. I see where this is leading to. So they're kind of harmonious action, and they all have an aspect of vision or understanding. I see where this is leading. I'm on a roll. I'm going. No stress me. I'm riding with it. So they're kind of more of a vision you have while you're doing something. I see the vision. I understand I'm going there. On track. So trines are kind of visionary, more towards the awareness, harmonious, and the sextiles are more productive. But neither of them are anywhere near as significant as the conjunctions and the squares and oppositions. Okay, so with the regional notes, this is the, excuse me, this is the basic aspects. The conjunction, two people together in the same degree, the same minute, that, or two planets, that's the conjunction. The energies together, it's 1/1 of a circle, 0 degrees. For planets, orbs, we allow 0 to 7 degrees. For the sun, if the sun or the moon is involved, we allow 10 degrees. Even if it's both, we allow a 10-degree orb. The nature of the aspect of a conjunction is stress, tension, leading to activity. Okay, colors were just for how charts are drawn up. So it's just, usually I rate the squares, conjunctions, opposition as red. Sometimes I put the conjunctions as white, but that's for drawing the chart. The last one, the opposition, is 1/2 of a circle. So you have the whole circle, you divide it in half, 180 degrees. And the symbol is two planets opposed to each other. Like you have the symbol like two circles with a line in between them. And this is a stress and tension aspect. And the opposition, your awareness of contrast or counterbalance. You're caught between two things. You see two different things. You see this counterbalance or opposition. And there's stress and tension that comes from it. It's not just passive. It's, whoa, that's different. Then how am I going to deal with it? How am I going to, what does that mean? So this is, the opposition is the second stress factor. The square is 1/4 of a circle, so we have whole note, half note. It's like music, quarter notes. The 90-degree aspects, just written as a square, 4 90-degree aspects. But it's a stress. The notes have stress, tension, and a struggle to be effective. There's a conflict between activity and awareness. I want to do this. Wait a second. What's right? What's wrong? How do I understand? Why am I getting friction, or why am I getting support, or am I getting friction? So the squares. So if you just have conjunctions, squares, and oppositions, which ones do you have the most of in your chart? It's quite a powerful statement just by itself. Okay, so the conjunction, the square, and the opposition, they're the stress tension ones. The opposition goes to understanding, trying to figure it out, or run across a block. The conjunction doesn't have that. It's trying to use the energy and force it. So the sextiles and the trines, 1/3 is a trine. These are considered the major aspects. 1/4, 1/2, 1/3, 1/6 of a circle. So 1/3 of a circle, the trine. It's the trine, we talked a little bit about it. It's harmony and ease, closer to awareness of vision and understanding, seeing where you're going and being in touch with it. You're on a roll and you see where it's going. No hassles. It runs for a phase. If someone has too many trines, they're really smooth, but they also can be really lazy. They don't deal with stress that well. So, but trines, if you have 5 trines on one square, the one square will stand out more than any one of the trines. If you got 5 people in a restaurant or in a department store, and they're all ordering something, and one person starts screaming, the person who starts screaming is going to get the attention. But this harmony and ease, this is ease in action, and understanding your action, seeing where you're going. This is like a trine. And it'll happen between each planet, between different levels of consciousness. The sextile is harmony and ease, smooth, efficient. It's closer to the conjunction. It's on the activity half. So it's the productive side. So generally when we're drawing aspects on a chart, sextiles will be green, trines will be blue, the squares, oppositions will be red, and the conjunctions, they're right together, so there's hardly a line you notice, but it would be You can put white, yellow, or red for it. This one sheet is the basic sheet for the beginner's level. I just brought the other stuff in so you can understand it a little bit better to come into it. Now, okay, this is the one we're working with. Very simply, you go back and use these keywords. We'll get to this. We don't have to memorize all these things extensively yet. Once you get the 4 main cycles, you divide them in half and you have the 8 cycles, the 8 phases, like the 8 phases of the moon. There's another struggle, a smaller struggle, but still a struggle, like in between the conjunctions and the squares. Those would be struggles to adjust activity. When it's in between the squares and the opposition, it would be struggle to adjust one's understanding. You don't understand it. You're not doing that right. Let me show you. So these are considered minor aspects. You don't see them so easily. You have to calculate them, but they're more noticeable because they're a stress factor than a sextile or a trine. It could be argued that you have all these 8 main stressful aspects, or even just the 4, and everything else can pretty well be ignored. They hardly have their presence in the same way. So again, the balance between activity and awareness, that's the key understanding. And then the stressful adjustments of going from one to the other. So this comes out to the moon phases, and you'll see these presented with the moon phases, and you have the booklet going in. So it elaborates those phases in quite detail. And I'm not going to get into the phases at this stage. We'll do that again at a later date. But I want you to remember this is the end of the theory phase, but I want you to remember each planet, like here's the signs on the top of the horoscope layers. Here's the houses on the bottom, like the shades. You have the shades of color, the shades of gray, the signs in the houses. You have each layer as a planet in between this, going up the spine, or going up, being a different layer of consciousness. And each planet has its relationships. So these aspects, we see them, if you look at the top of the chart, we see them as going just around the circle. We see them like they're flat on a chart. There's a square, this thing. But when you actually look at it from the side in depth, some are going really up long distance. Moon to the Pluto would be a long way. Moon to Mercury would be closer. There's a different depth perception within each of these as well. Okay, so each of these different levels or depths, these are the planets. And each of them are affected by each other. This is the mechanics of what you would call Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you haven't had a good night's sleep and you don't have a full stomach, you're not going to be able to think properly in the day. If you can't think properly, it's going to be difficult to make valuable choices. If you can't make valuable choices, you're going to make bad choices, and you're not going to have the same confidence. And if you have poor confidence, then your actions will become reflected in that. If you have good confidence, you might take better actions. If you take poor actions, you get a certain understanding. If you take good actions, Mars, you get another understanding. Depending on how you understand what is needed to be done to Saturn, Jupiter can guide the Mars to get more out of it. Then there's a limit of how much you can accomplish and what you can actually do. So Saturn. So each of the planets has these different layers, and we're looking at the relationships between the two, how they affect each other.